The big doors made a heavy, grinding sound. Tall aliens pushed them open. They were strong and looked like angry insects. Their hard, shiny skin reflected the strange green light of the huge room. Between them, held tightly by each arm, stumbled Jake. Jake was a human. He looked dirty and tired. His simple spacesuit was torn. Fear was clear on his face. His heart pounded like a drum inside his chest. This is bad, he thought. Really, really bad. The insect guards dragged Jake forward. Their sharp claws dug into his arms. He tried to pull away, but they were too strong. The floor under his boots felt strange, almost like living rock. The air smelled sharp and sweet, like flowers mixed with something sour. At the far end of the huge room was a raised platform. On it sat the biggest alien Jake had ever seen. This was the queen of the Zy'rath hive. She was huge, much bigger than her guards. Her body looked like dark, polished stone. Long, thin legs folded beneath her. Her head was large, with big, dark eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Above her head, two long antennae moved slowly, like they were tasting the air. She was powerful. She was scary. The guards stopped Jake roughly in front of the platform. They forced him to his knees. The hard floor hurt. Jake looked up at the giant queen. She looked back. Her dark eyes were impossible to read. They just stared. Your ... Your Highness, Jake stammered. His voice sounded small in the huge, quiet room. Please. I didn't mean to enter your space. My ship. It broke down. I was just looking for parts. Scrap metal. I meant no harm. He tried to sound calm, but his voice shook. The queen didn't move. She didn't blink. She just kept looking at him. The silence felt heavy. It pressed down on Jake. He could hear his own breathing, loud and fast. He could hear the faint hum of the hive around them. But the queen said nothing. Jake swallowed hard. He tried again. I have nothing valuable. Just let me go. I'll leave your space forever. I promise. He felt sweat trickle down his back. Why wasn't she speaking? Was she deciding how to kill him? Would her guards eat him? Stories about the Zy'rath were not nice. Still, the queen was silent. Her antennae stopped moving for a second, then twitched again. Her huge eyes seemed to look right through Jake. They studied his face, his messy hair, his worn clothes. They looked at his hands, still shaking. She leaned forward, just a tiny bit. The movement was slow and deliberate. Jake flinched. He expected anger, expected shouts. He expected maybe a sharp command to take him away. But the queen did none of that. Instead, a strange feeling filled the air. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hate. It felt like ... surprise, wonder. Jake couldn't tell. The queen's huge eyes seemed to soften just a little. A faint, strange light seemed to glow deep inside them. The silence stretched on. Jake felt dizzy. His knees hurt. His arms ached where the guards held him. The fear was making him sick. Just say something, he screamed inside his head. Then, the queen moved. She raised one of her long, thin front limbs. It ended in sharp points, but she held it carefully. She pointed it directly at Jake. Her large head tilted slightly. Her antennae vibrated fast. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. The guards stopped breathing. Jake stopped breathing. What was happening? Keen opened her mouth. Her voice, when it came, was not what Jake expected. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a hiss. It was loud, yes, echoing around the chamber. But it was also ... clear, and underneath the power, there was something else. Something that sounded almost like happiness, excitement. The words boomed out, filling every corner of the silent throne room. You got me pregnant, human. The sound hit Jake like a physical blow. His mouth dropped open. His eyes went wide. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. The words echoed in his ears, bouncing around his stunned brain. Pregnant? Me? How? What? He stared at the huge alien queen. She looked back at him. Her dark eyes were bright now. There was no anger there, number, hate, only a fierce, almost unbelievable excitement. A strange energy seemed to buzz around her. The guards holding Jake froze completely. Their grip loosened slightly. They looked at each other, their insect faces showing shock. They looked at the queen. They looked back at Jake. Confusion replaced their anger to Jake just knelt there. His mind was blank, empty. All he could see were the queen's huge, excited eyes. All he could hear were those impossible words ringing in the silence. You got me pregnant? Human. Everything went dark. The throne room, the guards, the giant queen, ... They all faded away. Jake felt nothing but pure, total shock. His world had just turned upside down. Silence, heavy, thick silence, filled the giant throne room after the queen's words. Jake knelt on the hard floor, frozen. His mouth was still open. His brain felt like broken machinery, sparking uselessly. Pregnant me. The words bounced inside his skull, making no sense. Then, like a dam breaking, the panic hit. Me, Jake's voice cracked, loud and shaky in the quiet. He jerked against the guard's grip, but they held firm, still looking stunned themselves. How? That's impossible. We didn't, do anything? His face felt hot, hammered against his ribs like it wanted to escape. I was locked up. You barely looked at me. How can I make you pregnant? The huge Zy'rath queen watched him calmly. Her dark, multifaceted eyes held none of Jake's panic. Instead, they shone with a strange, bright energy. A soft, almost happy hum vibrated from her large body. She seemed excited. Yes, you, human Jake, she said, her voice still clear and powerful, but warmer now. Your biology, it is unique, miraculous. She placed one long, thin limb gently on her lower abdomen, where her hard, dark plates met. Your very presence, your essence in the air of my hive. It sparked something ancient within me. Life, a new life, grows here. A child, our child. Jake stared. Essence, in the air. He felt dizzy. This was crazy, insane. You got pregnant just because I breathed near you. He shook his head wildly. No, that can't be right. Humans don't work like that. Aliens don't work like that. This is a mistake. A trick. Fear choked him. Was this some bizarre execution method? Make him crazy first. The queen's antennae twitched gently. No mistake, human. No trick. It is a rare gift. A blessing unseen for 1,000 cycles. Her voice dropped slightly, becoming almost dreamy. Your species, humanity, holds a key. A spark we Zy'rath lost long ago. You awoke it within me. This child is a miracle. Jake didn't feel like a miracle. He felt like a bug under a microscope. A very confused, very terrified bug. A child. The thought sent a fresh wave of cold fear through him. An alien baby, half human. What would that even be? His mind spun with horrible, impossible images. He looked around wildly, searching for some sense in the guards' faces. But the tall, insectoid warriors seemed just as confused as him. Their fierce anger was gone, replaced by uncertainty. They looked at their queen with a mix of awe and something else. Was that worry? Fear. Jake followed their glances. His eyes scanned the edges of the huge throne room. Beyond the bright green light near the queen, The chamber was vast, with high walls made of what looked like dark, living rock. Deep shadows pooled in corners and behind towering, twisted pillars. That's when he saw it. Movement in the deepest shadows near a pillar. Someone was watching. Not just watching, staring. It was another Zy'rath, taller and thinner than the guards. Its dark carapace looked older, worn. It wore strange, flowing robes instead of armor. Its posture was stiff, rigid. Its multifaceted eyes, reflecting the dim light, burned with an emotion Jake recognized instantly. Hatred. Pure, hot hatred. Directed straight at him. Jake's breath caught. The panic about the baby suddenly felt smaller, colder. This new fear was sharp and immediate. Who was that? Why did it look at him like that? He looked back at the queen. She was still radiating calm excitement, gently touching her abdomen, lost in her thoughts of the miracle. She hadn't noticed the figure in the shadows. The guards near Jake shifted uneasily, their claws clicking softly on the floor. They had seen the watcher too. They didn't seem happy. The air, which had felt thick with shock before, now crackled with tension. The queen's happiness felt fragile, like a thin sheet of ice over very dark water. The robed figure stepped forward. It moved silently out of the shadows and into the edge of the green light. Its eyes never left Jake. Its long limbs were tense. It raised one thin, clawed hand slowly, pointing a sharp finger directly at Jake. The hatred in its gaze was like a physical force. The queen finally noticed. She turned her huge head, her antennae snapping upright. "High Priest Vrax," she said, her voice losing its dreamy tone, turning sharp. "What is the meaning of this?" The robed alien, High Priest Vrax, ignored her for a second. His burning eyes stayed locked on Jake. When he spoke, his voice was a harsh, angry hiss that scraped against Jake's ears. It dripped with disgust. "This thing." Vrax spat the word like poison. This filthy, unnatural abomination of a creature. His pointing claw trembled with rage. "It has defiled the sacred bloodline," he said. "It has poisoned the future of the hive." He took another step forward, his robes swirling. The guards holding Jake flinched. Vrax's voice rose, becoming a shriek that echoed off the walls. "This human must be destroyed." The shout ripped through the throne room. The queen reared back slightly, a low, dangerous growl starting deep in her chest. Her eyes flashed from excitement to protective fury. "You dare?" she roared. The guards looked from their furious queen to the shrieking high priest. Their grip on Jake tightened, then loosened, then tightened again. They didn't know who to obey. They looked scared. Jake's blood turned to ice. The baby was a huge, terrifying problem. But looking at High Priest Vrax's face, filled with pure, murderous rage, Jake realized with chilling certainty the baby wasn't the only thing that wanted him dead. High Priest Vrax's shout, destroyed, still seemed to echo in the huge throne room. The queen's furious growl vibrated the floor beneath Jake's knees. The guards looked frozen, claws twitching, unsure who to attack, but the queen moved fast. With a sharp command, a low buzz Jake felt in his bones. More guards rushed in. These ones looked bigger, meaner, their eyes fixed only on the queen. They formed a tight circle around her and Jake, facing outwards, their weapons ready. Vrax hissed, his robes swirling like angry shadows, but he didn't attack. He just glared, pure poison in his eyes, before vanishing back into the dark corners. Jake wasn't taken back to the dirty cell. Instead, the new guards led him through twisting corridors deep inside the living rock hive. They stopped at a doorway that opened smoothly. Inside wasn't a prison. It was strange. Soft blue light glowed from the walls. The floor felt warm and slightly soft under his boots. There was a low platform that looked like a bed, covered in smooth, silky material. It looked comfortable. Too comfortable. You stay here, human, one guard grunted, his voice rough. For the child. Queen's order. The door slid shut behind them. Jake was alone in the weirdly nice room. Prison made nice. Because of the baby. Stomach. Churned. Our child, the Queen had said. The words felt like stones in his gut. He didn't have to wait long. The door opened again, and the Queen entered. She seemed smaller here, less terrifying, but still huge. Her excitement was back, but mixed with something else now, a watchful tension. Her antennae flicked constantly, checking the air. Jake, human, she said, her voice softer. The child. It needs something. Something only you can give. Backed up a step. What? What now? Images of Rax's hatred flashed in his mind. Nothing painful, the Queen said quickly, seeing his fear. Simple. A small piece of you, hair, saliva, a drop of blood. Your unique spark. It helps the child grow strong. Before Jake could argue, she guided him to a smooth, stone table in the center of the room. It felt cool. She placed a small, sharp tool beside him that looked like a polished claw. Just a little, she repeated, for the miracle. Jake's hands shook. This was insane. But what choice did he have? Kay picked up the tool. It was cold. He pulled a hair from his head. Kay spat carefully into a small bowl she held. Finally, gritting his teeth, he pricked his finger. A single, bright red drop of blood welled up. He let it fall into the bowl. The Queen hummed, a sound like distant bees. She seemed relieved. As she carefully collected the bowl, she pointed one long limb at the wall. Look, Jake, human. See why this child is special. Why you are special. The blue light on the wall shimmered. Then, pictures appeared. Terium. Not like human pictures, but carved symbols and shapes that seemed to move and tell a story. Ancient Zy'rath, writing glyphs. The Queen's voice became low, almost a whisper. Long, long ago, before my mother's mother. Our ancestors met others from the stars, like you, different, but sparking. The glyphs showed tall, thin aliens meeting. Zy'rath. Then a glyph showed a Zy'rath queen, her abdomen glowing slightly, just like the Queen's was now. It happened then too, a star-touched conception, hybrid child. Jake stared. It happened before. Hope flickered for a second. Maybe this wasn't so bad, but the Queen's next words crushed it. Her voice turned dark, sad. It was forbidden. The glyphs changed. Angry Zy'rath figures appeared, led by someone who looked like Vrax. They pointed sharp weapons. The glyph of the pregnant Queen looked scared. The old ones teased. They feared the change, feared the mixing. The final glyph was clear and terrible. The hybrid child symbol was cracked and broken, destroyed. Next to it, the star-touched alien figure lay fallen. Dead Jake felt cold. They killed it. They killed the baby. And the alien. The Queen nodded slowly. Her antennae drooped. Yes, the ancient law. No mixing, no change. Only pure Zy'rath blood. She touched her own abdomen gently. Vrax believes this law is sacred. T thinks our child is a monster, an abomination that must be destroyed, like before. Jake looked at the broken child glyph. Horror washed over him. That's what Vrax wanted for this child. It's why he wanted Jake dead. Not just anger, ancient, stupid fear. But you're the Queen, Jake protested. Can't you change the law? I am Queen, she said, her voice regaining some strength. But Vrax speaks for the old ways. Many listen. Many fear. She looked at the bowl holding Jake's blood and saliva. That is why we must be careful. Secret. This child is a miracle. It must live. She placed the bowl carefully on the stone table. She closed her large eyes and began to hum again, louder this time. The blue light in the room pulsed. The symbols on the wall glowed brighter. The tiny drop of Jake's blood in the bowl seemed to shimmer with its own light. The air buzzed with strange energy. The ritual had begun. Jake watched, heart pounding. He watched the queen, focused and powerful. He watched his blood glow. He thought of the destroyed child in the glyphs. Please work, he thought, not knowing what he was asking for. Suddenly, the queen's eyes snapped open. Her hum stopped dead. Her antennae shot straight up, rigid. A look of pure alarm crossed her face. Screech. A deafening electronic alarm blasted through the room. The blue lights flashed bright red. The door shook violently. Crash. The heavy door exploded inward in a shower of sharp rock fragments. Smoke filled the doorway. Through the smoke, Jake saw dark figures rushing in. Leading them, robes flying, eyes burning with fanatical fury, was High Priest Vrax. He held a long, crackling energy staff. Heresy. Vrax screamed, pointing the staff straight at the queen and the glowing bowl on the table. End it now. Kill the human. Destroy the abomination. Vrax's followers charged, weapons raised. The queen roared, shoving Jake backwards towards the far wall. The ritual bowl teetered, almost falling. They were trapped, cornered in the blue-lit room. No guards in sight. Only enemies, smoke and dust filled the blue-lit room. Sharp pieces of broken door littered the floor. High Priest Vrax stood in the wrecked doorway, his energy staff crackling with angry purple light. His followers surged in behind him, weapons raised, their insect faces twisted with hate. For the pure hive. Vrax shrieked, "Destroy them." Duh. Queen moved like lightning, before Jake could even blink. Her large body slammed into him, shoving him hard backwards. He stumbled, crashing against the warm wall, away from the charging attackers and the precious ritual bowl. The queen planted herself firmly between Jake and Vrax, her whole body radiating fury. She roared, a sound so loud it shook the room and made Jake's teeth rattle. It wasn't just sound. It felt like a wave of pure anger pushing against Vrax's followers. They hesitated, stumbling back a step. "Run, Jake human." The queen bellowed, not looking back. "To the ships. Go now. Run." "Where?" Jake's mind raced, but seeing the queen face down Vrax's crackling staff and the swarm of angry aliens, he knew staying meant death. For him, for her, for the baby. He scrambled to his feet. Vrax screamed, swinging his staff. A bolt of purple energy shot out. The queen dodged surprisingly fast, and the bolt slammed into the wall, leaving a black scorch mark. Her roar turned into a furious battle cry as she lunged at Vrax, knocking followers aside like toys. This was his chance. Jake ducked low and bolted for the shattered doorway. He squeezed past fighting bodies, feeling the heat of energy blasts singed the air near his head. One follower lunged at him, claws out. Jake didn't think. He grabbed a large, sharp piece of broken door rock and swung it hard, hit the follower's head with a dull thunk, sending the alien staggering back. Jake didn't wait. He jumped through the smoking doorway and into the corridor. Outside was chaos. The alarm still blared, a painful screech. Red lights flashed on and off, making the twisting, organic corridors look like a nightmare. He could hear shouts, the buzz of weapons, and the queen's furious roars from the room behind him. Which way? Ships. The queen had said ships. He remembered rough maps glimpsed during his capture. Down, deeper, towards the hive's underbelly. He ran. His boots pounded on the strange, slightly soft floor. The corridors twisted and turned, splitting like roots. He took turns at random, driven only by panic and the need to go down. Behind him, he heard new shouts. Vrax's followers were breaking free, chasing him. He skidded around a corner and saw two Zy'rath warriors running towards him from the other end. Trapped, desperately, Jake slammed his fist against a glowing, pulsing node on the wall. He'd seen guards touch them to open doors. The wet, sucking sound, a thick, fleshy door slid shut right in front of the two warriors, blocking them. Yes, Jake kept running. He used his small size and human quickness. He ducked under low-hanging, vein-like tubes. He shoved over strange, glowing plants growing from the walls, hoping they would trip his pursuers. He heard angry buzzing and crashes behind him. It was working, but only slowing them down. Suddenly, he burst into a larger chamber. It wasn't the throne room. This place hummed with power. Giant, egg-shaped pods lined the walls, glowing softly. In the center of the floor was a large, dark opening leading downwards, a lift shaft. He ran to the edge and looked down. It was deep, very deep, lit by faint green lights far below. Ships must be down there. He saw controls nearby, simple bumps on the wall. He slapped one. Nothing. Slapped another. A low hum started, and a platform began to rise slowly from the depths. Too slow. He could hear the angry buzz of Rox's followers getting closer at the chamber entrance. Think, Jake. He spotted thick, ropey cables hanging down the shaft near the rising platform. No time to wait. Jake grabbed the thickest cable. It felt tough and slightly slimy. Ignoring the gross feeling, he wrapped his arms and legs around it and started sliding down fast. The rough cable burned his hands, but he gritted his teeth and slid, dropping like a stone into the gloom. He landed hard, but on his feet on the rising platform just as it reached the chamber floor. He stumbled, hands stinging. Was in a huge, echoing space now. A hangar bay. Strange, insect-like ships rested on the floor, some small and sleek, others larger. Greenish light came from glowing moss on the high ceiling. Human, here. Shout came from his left. Jake whirled. There she was, the queen. She looked battered, a scorch mark on her shoulder, her movements slower, but alive. She stood near a small, pointed ship, its ramp lowered. Its two loyal guards fought desperately. Nearby, holding back a group of Vrax's followers, trying to reach her. Hurry, the queen yelled, her voice strained. Jake sprinted towards her. He saw Vrax burst into the hangar bay from another entrance, his robes torn, face furious. He spotted Jake and the queen heading for the ship. No, Vrax screamed. He grabbed a heavy weapon from a fallen guard nearby, not an energy staff, but a large, tube-like launcher. He aimed it wildly, not at them, but at the ship's engines. Jake reached the ramp. The queen grabbed his arm, pulling him inside the small ship. Go, go, she ordered the guards, fighting. They broke away and scrambled up the ramp as it began. Too close, Vrax fired the launcher. A thick, smoking projectile shot across the hangar bay. Whoosh. The projectile slammed into the back of the small ship just as the ramp sealed shut. Not a direct hit on the engines, but close. Too close. Inside the ship, alarms screamed. Lights flashed red. Jake was thrown to the floor as the whole craft lurched violently. The queen staggered, bracing herself against a wall. Engines damaged. Hold on, a guard yelled from the front, frantically pushing controls. The small ship lifted off the hangar floor, wobbling badly. It shot forward, towards the huge bay doors that were slowly, too slowly, grinding open to the blackness of space. They scraped through the narrowing gap, metal screaming against rock. Then they were free, tumbling out into the silent, star-filled void. But they weren't safe. The ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed everywhere. It wasn't flying straight. It was spinning, out of control. Stabilizers gone. Engine power failing. The guard pilot shouted, panic in his voice. Jake looked out a small window. Instead of open space, he saw huge, jagged rocks tumbling slowly in the darkness. An asteroid field. They were hurtling right towards it. The Queen grabbed Jake's shoulder, her grip tight. Eyes were wide with fear, not for herself, but for the life inside her. The ship spun wildly, the giant rocks getting closer, filling the view. The pilot yelled one last desperate thing before the spinning became too fast. The asteroids to close, brace for impact. The small, damaged ship spun helplessly into the dark teeth of the asteroid field. The last thing Jake saw was a massive rock rushing towards the window. Then, everything went black. Pain. That was the first thing Jake felt. Sharp pain in his head. A dull ache everywhere else. He groaned, forcing his eyes open. Everything was blurry. Dark, slowly. Shapes came into focus. Twisted metal, shattered glass-like material. Wires hanging down, sparking weakly. Smoke stung his nose. A was lying on a cold, hard floor that tilted sharply. He was still inside the small spaceship, but it was broken. Very broken. Memory crashed back. The hangar escape, spinning out of control. Asteroids rushing closer. The pilot scream, brace for impact. He was alive. Somehow Jake pushed himself up, wincing. His hands were cut. His head throbbed. He looked around the wrecked cabin. The two Zy'rath guards who had made it aboard were motionless near the front. One lay slumped over the broken controls. The other was pinned under a heavy piece of fallen ceiling. Neither moved. They looked dead. Fear squeezed Jake's chest. Queen? He croaked, his voice rough. Your Highness? A low groan answered him from the back of the tilted cabin. Jake scrambled over broken pieces, careful of the sparks. He found her. The Queen was half buried under fallen storage containers. Her dark carapace was cracked in one place on her shoulder. A smaller crack ran near one of her large eyes. She looked weak, hurt. Jake, ... human ... She whispered, her voice thin and strained. The child. She moved one long limb protectively over her abdomen. Jake saw it then. A faint, soft glow pulsed gently beneath her hard plates, like a tiny heartbeat made of light. The baby was still there, still alive. It's glowing. Jake asked, surprised. Yes, the Queen breathed. It lives, but ... it is weak. Like me, we need ... energy. Safety. She tried to push the debris off, but couldn't. Her strength was gone. Jake hurried to move the containers. They were heavy, but he managed to shift them enough for her to pull herself free. She slumped against the tilted wall, exhausted. Soft glow from her abdomen pulsed again, slower this time. Where are we? Jake asked, looking towards the front. The ship's main window was cracked, but not completely broken. Outside was not the blackness of space. It was a rocky, gray landscape under a dark purple sky. No plants, no water, just rocks and dust. A small moon or a barren planet. Did we crash land? Yes, the Queen said, closing her eyes for a moment. The impact ... damaged the ship badly, killed the guards. We are ... stranded. Stranded on a dead rock. With a broken ship, no food, little water, and 2 dead aliens. Panic tried to rise in Jake again, but he pushed it down. He had to think. He had to do something. He searched the wreckage. He found a small emergency kit. Inside was a little water, some strange paste that might be food, and a basic medical spray. He gave the water to the Queen first. She drank gratefully. He sprayed the medical stuff on her cracked shoulder. It seemed to ease her pain a little. He took a small sip of water himself, and ate a tiny bit of the paste. It tasted like chalk. "We need help," Jake said. "We need a way to call for help." He looked at the broken controls. Lights flickered uselessly. "Is there a distress beacon? A radio? Anything?" The Queen nodded weakly towards a panel near the dead pilot. "There's emergency signal, but broken." Jake crawled to the panel. It was smashed, but behind it, he saw a small, boxy device. Wires were torn. He wasn't an engineer, but maybe. He pulled the device out. It had a simple switch and a small light. The light was dark. He fiddled with the wires, trying to reconnect the loose ends. He didn't know what he was doing, but he had to try. As he worked, the Queen spoke again, her voice filled with a new kind of fear. "Jake Human, there is something else, something important, something ... dangerous." Jake looked up. The Queen's eyes were wide open now, full of worry. The faint glow under her plates pulsed, a little stronger this time. "The child," she whispered. It ... different, special, but also ... loud." "Loud?" Jake asked, confused. He couldn't hear anything, not with sound. The Queen said, with ... energy. "It is growing so fast, too fast, 'cause it is part of you. Human, your spark is strong. It makes the child strong, but also visible." Jake felt cold. "Visible? What do you mean?" "It sends out pulses," the Queen explained, touching her glowing abdomen. "Little waves of energy, like ripples in a pond. Every time it grows stronger, the pulse is bigger, brighter." "Okay." Jake stared at the soft glow. It pulsed again, right on cue. "And someone can see these pulses?" The Queen nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on Jake. "Yes, like a bright light in the dark. Any ship with the right scanners, ... Fraxis ships, ... They can find us. They can track the child." Core washed over Jake. That's how Vrox had found them so fast after the ritual. It wasn't bad luck. The baby was sending out a signal. Signal screaming, "Here I am." "It's a beacon." Jake gasped. "The baby ... is leading them right to us." "Yes," the Queen said, her voice filled with despair. "The stronger the child gets, the clearer the signal. Vrax will come. He will not stop. He will find us." Jake looked down at the broken distress beacon in his hands. He had been trying to fix it, to call for help. But calling for help could mean calling more enemies. Who could he trust? Human authorities? Would they help? Or would they see the baby as a monster too? Or a weapon? Looked back at the Queen. She looked so tired, so hurt. The baby's glow pulsed a little brighter than before. It was getting stronger. Time was running out. Suddenly, a small green light on the broken beacon device in Jake's hands flickered. Then it glowed steadily. He'd fixed the wires. Emergency signal was active, but before Jake could feel any relief, another sound cut through the silence of the wrecked ship. Beep. Beep. It came from the cracked main view screen. A small, blinking red dot had appeared on a simple scanner display that was still working. Jake scrambled to the front, pushing the dead guard aside. He looked at the screen. The red dot wasn't on the planet. It was in space. Above them. It was getting bigger, fast. He zoomed the scanner view out as much as he could. The red dot resolved into the shape of a ship, a big ship. It looked sharp and dangerous, like a giant stinger. And it was unmistakably Zy'rath. Vrax had found them already. The priest's warship filled the cracked view screen, blocking out the purple sky. It was here. Vrax's warship blocked the purple sky. It looked like a giant black claw ready to crush them. Jake's blood turned to ice. They were trapped on the barren moon. No ship, no weapons, no help. and the baby's energy pulse was like a flashing sign saying, "Here we are. They're landing." Jake gasped, pointing at the view screen. Smaller shapes detached from the big ship landing pods. They streaked down towards the moon's surface, kicking up dust. The queen tried to stand, but winced in pain. Her cracked carapace looked bad. "We cannot fight them. Jake human. Frax brings warriors. Many." The soft glow under her plates pulsed faster, as if the baby felt her fear. Panic screamed inside Jake's head. "Run." "Where?" The moon was empty. Rock-hide. Frax had scanners. He'd find the baby's signal easily. Okay. They were sitting ducks. Then Jake looked around the wrecked ship. Broken metal, shattered panels, wires. He looked outside at the rocky landscape boulders, deep cracks in the ground, steep slopes of loose gray stones. A crazy, desperate idea sparked in his mind. He wasn't a soldier. He was a scavenger. He knew junk. He knew how things broke. And he knew how to make trouble. "Your Highness," Jake said quickly, his voice tight. Can you make the baby's pulse stronger? On purpose? Like a big burst?" The queen looked confused. Then understanding dawned. Yes. But why?" "It will show them exactly where we are." "Exactly," Jake said, a fierce grin spreading across his dirty face. "We need them to come here, to the ship, but not all at once." He pointed towards a narrow canyon nearby, filled with huge, precariously balanced boulders. "You need to hide. Over there, behind that big rock wall. When you hear me shout now, make the biggest pulse you can. Then stop. Hide the signal completely. Can you do that?" The queen studied him, her large eyes searching his face. She saw the determination, the crazy hope. She nodded slowly. "For the child, I will try." She moved painfully towards the canyon entrance, finding a deep shadow behind a massive boulder. Her glow dimmed until it was almost invisible. Jake didn't waste a second. He grabbed broken pieces of shiny metal from the ship. He found a small, half-working power cell. He ripped wires free. He worked fast, his hands trembling but sure. He wasn't building a weapon. He was building a distraction. He heard the roar of engines. Test swirled outside. 3 landing pods touched down nearby. Ramps slammed open. Frax stepped out first, his robes dusty, but his eyes burning with hate. Behind him came 6 Zy'rath warriors, armed with crackling energy staves. They scanned the wrecked ship. Frax pointed. His staff. "The signal comes from the human wreck. Find them. Kill the human. Bring the queen unharmed. The abomination must be purified." The warriors started marching towards the broken ship. Perfect, Jake thought. He crouched low inside the wreck, near a gaping hole in the hull. He held his makeshift device, wires connected to the power cell, wrapped around a piece of reflective metal. He took a deep breath. As the warriors got closer, Jake jumped up. He waved the shiny metal wildly, catching the dim light. "Hey, over here, bug faces," he yelled. "Looking for me." The warriors snapped their heads towards him. Frax snarled. "The human, get him." The 6 warriors charged straight at the ship, towards Jake's position. Jake didn't wait. He slammed the wires onto the power cell. It sparked wildly. Then Jake threw the whole thing out of the hole, not at the warriors, but high into the air over their heads. FZCCCC T-bang. The power cell exploded in a bright flash and a loud crack. Harmless mostly, but loud and bright. The warriors flinched, startled, looking up at the sudden flash. "Now, Queen. Now," Jake screamed at the top of his lungs. From behind the canyon wall, a powerful wave of energy pulsed out. It wasn't just a glow, Jake could see. He felt it wash over him like warm water. It lit up the rocks around the queen's hiding spot for a split second. A bright, obvious flare on the warrior scanners. The signal. One warrior buzzed, pointing away from the ship, towards the canyon. "It's there, by the rocks." Queen Vrax roared, "After her. Forget the human." He clearly thought Jake was just a decoy. His warriors turned and sprinted towards the canyon entrance where the pulse had flashed. Jake scrambled out of the wrecked ship. He didn't follow the warriors. He ran around the side of the canyon, climbing quickly up the steep, rocky slope. Loose stones skittered under his boots. Below, he saw the 6 warriors rush into the narrow canyon entrance, Vrax close behind. Jake reached the top. He was above the canyon now. Hey, below him, the warriors were searching the shadows near the queen's hiding spot. Vrax was shouting orders. Jake looked down at the huge boulders balanced precariously on the canyon rim right above them. "Please work," he prayed. He found a large, heavy rock. He braced himself. With a grunt of effort, he pushed it hard, sending it tumbling down the slope, towards the biggest, most unstable boulder on the edge. Thud, crack. The heavy rock hit the giant boulder. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, with a slow, groaning rumble, the giant boulder shifted. Then another next to it. Then another. Boom. Crash. A rock slide. Tons of rock and dust crashed down into the narrow canyon below. The warriors screamed, looking up, too late. They were buried under a wave of gray stone and choking dust. Only one near the entrance managed to scramble back out, injured and stunned. Vrax hadn't been buried. He'd been standing slightly apart. The rock slide missed him, but it blocked the canyon entrance and buried his warriors. He was alone, covered in dust, staring in shock at the destruction. Then his head snapped up. He saw Jake standing on the canyon rim. Pure rage twisted Vrax's face. He raised his crackling energy staff and screamed, a sound of pure hate. He charged straight up the slope towards Jake, ignoring the loose stones, his eyes fixed on his target. Jake backed up, looking for another rock, another weapon. But there was nothing. Vrax climbed fast, fueled by fury. Jake was at the very edge of the canyon rim now. Behind him was a sheer drop into a deep, dark chasm. There's nowhere left to run. Vrax reached the top. He stood between Jake and safety. His staff hummed with deadly power. "You clever pest," Vrax hissed. "But cleverness ends now." He lunged, swinging the staff like a club. Jake ducked. The crackling energy missed his head by inches. Tried to dodge again, but Vrax was fast. The staff clipped Jake's shoulder. Pain exploded, and Jake cried out, stumbling backwards. It's too close to the edge. Stones crumbled under his boots. Vrax raised the staff for the killing blow. Die, abomination. Jake knew he couldn't dodge. Out of pure instinct, he didn't. Tried to run. Hey, lunged forward, low and hard, tackling Vrax around the waist. It was like hitting a tree trunk, but Vrax was off balance. Vrax roared as they both stumbled. Jake pushed with all his strength. Vrax staggered backwards, his arms flailing. His boots slipped on the loose stones right at the canyon's edge. Vrax started to fall, but as he fell backwards into the open air, his clawed hand shot out in a desperate grab. Thwack! Vrax's sharp claws clamped around Jake's ankle like a vice. The sudden, painful jerk pulled Jake off his feet. Jake slammed onto his stomach at the very edge of the chasm. It's dust-filled. His mouth, Vrax's full weight yanked on his leg, pulling him towards the drop. Jake scrambled, clawing at the loose rocks with his free hand, kicking wildly with his other leg. But Vrax held on tight, dangling over the black emptiness. Jake couldn't pull him up. He couldn't break free. The rocks under Jake's chest started to crumble. Vrax looked up, his eyes wide with terror and hate. He hung on to Jake's ankle, his only lifeline. Jake stared down into the dark abyss, feeling Vrax's weight pulling him slowly, inevitably, over the edge. One strong tug, or one more crumbling rock, and they would both fall. They were stuck, hanging together, over nothing but darkness and death. Jake clawed at the loose rock, his fingers bleeding. Vrax dangled below him, holding onto Jake's ankle with a death grip. The high priest's weight pulled Jake, inch by inch, towards the edge of the dark chasm. Stones crumbled beneath Jake's chest. He could feel Vrax's terrified thrashing, hear his angry, panicked hisses. Below them was only blackness. Let that go. Jake gasped, kicking wildly with his free leg. His boot hit Vrax's shoulder, but the priest held on tighter, his claws digging deep into Jake's boot and skin. Pain shot up Jake's leg. "Take you with me, human," Vrax snarled, his eyes wide with fear and hate. Jake felt the ground under his chest give way. He started to slide. He screamed, throwing his arms wide, trying to find anything to hold on to. There was nothing. He was going over. Suddenly, a long, dark limb shot out and grabbed Jake's arm. It pulled hard, stopping his slide. T looked up. It was the queen. She stood at the chasm's edge, her face strained with pain and effort. She had crawled out from her hiding place. "Hold on," she grunted, pulling with all her strength. She was weak from her injuries and the birth energy, but her grip was strong. Vrax saw her. Sphere turned into fury. "Foolish queen, release him. Let the abomination perish." The queen ignored him. She braced herself against a solid rock and pulled Jake backwards. Jake felt himself move away from the edge. Hope surged. But Vrax still held his ankle, dragging like a heavy anchor. "You, will not, one." Vrax shrieked, trying to climb up Jake's leg. The queen saw her chance. With a burst of desperate strength, she pulled Jake further back. Then, she reached down with her other long limb, not for Jake, but for Vrax's clawed hand, locked onto Jake's ankle. "No!" Vrax screamed as the queen's strong fingers wrapped around his wrist. She didn't pull him up. He pried his claws open, one by one, breaking his grip. "For my child." The queen roared. Vrax's claws slipped. His eyes widened in pure terror. He let out one last furious scream as he lost his hold. He fell backwards, arms flailing into the deep, dark chasm. His scream echoed, growing fainter and fainter, until there was only silence. Jake scrambled away from the edge, gasping, his ankle throbbing. He lay on his back, staring at the purple sky, his heart pounding. Like a drum, he was alive. Vrax was gone. The queen slumped next to him, breathing hard. Her eyes were closed. The soft glow from her abdomen pulsed rapidly. She groaned, a sound of deep pain. "Jake, human, it is, time, the child. It comes, now." Fear replaced Jake's relief. "Now, here, but how? I have nothing." He looked around the barren rocks. The queen didn't answer. She curled slightly, her body trembling. The soft glow under her plates grew brighter, pulsing faster. Wasn't just light anymore. It seemed to hum with energy. Strange, glowing patterns began to appear on her dark skin, spreading from her abdomen like cracks filled with light. Jake knelt beside her, unsure what to do. "What can I do? Tell me." But the queen was lost in the pain. She panted, a low, buzzing sound. The light grew blindingly bright. Jake shielded his eyes. The air crackled with static. The rocks around them seemed to vibrate then, with a final gasp from the queen. The intense light burst outwards in a warm, gentle wave. It washed over Jake like sunlight, soothing his pain and fear for a moment. The light faded as quickly as it came. Silence fell. The queen lay still, breathing heavily. The strange glowing patterns on her skin faded. In her lap, curled against her, was a small bundle. Jake leaned closer, his heart in his mouth. It was a baby, small, maybe the size of a human toddler. Its skin was smooth and pale, like moonlight. Tiny, delicate limbs moved softly. On its head was a fine fuzz of dark hair. But what caught Jake's eye were the markings faint. Glowing patterns like the queen's, shimmering softly on its skin. And then it opened its eyes. Jake froze. One eye was a clear, bright blue, just like his own. The other eye was large and dark, multifaceted, like the queen's. It blinked, looking around with a calm, curious expression. The baby made a soft sound, a gentle coo, mixed with a tiny, musical buzz. It was strange, but not scary. It felt peaceful. The queen lifted her head weakly. She looked at the child in her lap. Exhaustion covered her face, but also pure, overwhelming love and wonder. She touched the baby's cheek with one careful claw tap. The baby turned its head towards her touch. Jake stared at the child. His child, half human, half alien, a miracle. The fear he'd felt for months didn't vanish, but it changed. It mixed with something else, something warm and protective. He slowly reached out a trembling finger. The baby saw his movement. It turned its head, its blue eye and its dark facet. I looked straight at Jake. It buzzed again, a happy sound. Okay. Then it reached out one tiny, perfect hand and wrapped its tiny fingers around Jake's rough, bloody finger. The touch was warm, gentle. Jake felt tears sting in his eyes. He didn't pull away. The queen smiled weakly. "Our child," she whispered. In that moment, holding his child's hand, looking at the exhausted but happy queen, Jake felt a strange peace. They were stranded, hurt, but they were alive. Together, the baby's soft glow pulsed gently, calmly deep. Inside the wrecked spaceship, forgotten in the chaos, the cracked view screen flickered. The scanner display, damaged but still partly working, lit up. It wasn't showing the moon anymore. It was showing a map of stars. The baby's soft glow pulsed again in Jake's hand. On the scanner screen, a bright, pulsing dot appeared at their location. Then, Glowing lines shot out from the dot, racing across the star map, faster than light. They connected to distant stars, distant galaxies Jake had never even heard of. The lines glowed brightly for a few seconds, tracing paths across the universe before fading. The screen flickered once more, then went dark, far, far away. So far, it would take light years to reach. In a place of cold darkness between galaxies, something huge stirred. It was a ship, but unlike any Jake or the Queen had ever seen. It was massive, shaped like a jagged crystal, glowing with an eerie, cold blue light from within. Inside its dark core, two large, slit-like eyes snapped open. They glowed a deep, blood red. A voice, deep and cold as space itself, echoed through the silent command chamber. It wasn't spoken aloud. It was felt. A command. The anomaly is born. Its signature is clear. The voice paused, filled with ancient power and chilling purpose. Retrieve it. The massive crystal ship, silent and deadly, slowly turned. It pointed its sharp nose towards a distant, tiny point of light, towards a small, barren moon, towards the miracle, towards the child